The Gen Z uprising has spread to the streets of Peru. From the Andean highlands to the heart of Lima, thousands of young people, students, workers, indigenous activists are rising again. Their target, the same corrupt elite that has ruled and ruined Peru for decades. To understand the anger of 2025, we need to look back. In December 2022, President Pedro Castillo, a rural teacher and unionist, was ousted and imprisoned after attempting to dissolve Congress following facing months of obstruction, ministerial ousters, and imminent impeachment from a hostile right-wing legislature that never accepted his presidency. His removal triggered an uprising led largely by indigenous and working-class communities. Protesters demanded the resignation of Dina Boluarte, the dissolution of Congress, new elections, and even a new constitution, but the government answered with bullets. In Ayacucho, in Juliaca, dozens were killed. The UN and human rights groups called it state repression. Boluarte stayed in power, but legitimacy never returned. To see where this cycle began, we go back to the 1990s. That is when Alberto Fujimori came to power, promising stability and order. Within 2 years, however, he shut down Congress, suspended the constitution, and ruled by decree. He called it a self-coup. The IMF called it reform. Under Fujimori, Peru became a laboratory for neoliberalism. The IMF and World Bank prescribed mass privatization. State industries, railways, utilities, all sold to foreign investors. Prices rose, public services collapsed, and unions were crushed. But Fujimori's war was also political. Under the pretext of fighting terrorism, he used the justice system to crush the left, targeting unions, indigenous activists, and anyone who resisted. Thousands were imprisoned or disappeared. Justice became a weapon of fear. Years later, Fujimori was convicted of corruption and human rights violations, including the Barrios Altos and La Cantuta massacres, all done with the tacit approval of the US and the IMF. Yet, his economic model, the one that handed Peru's wealth to global markets, survived him. Fujimori's dictatorship ended in 2000, but his policies did not. Every government that followed, from Toledo to Garcia, Humala to Kaczynski, continued the same neoliberal playbook: privatize, liberalize, and obey the markets. When protests erupt, exports stall, so repression follows. Hudbay Minerals even shut down a copper mill during the unrest, showing how intertwined global profits and domestic politics have become. So the global theft of Peruvian resources forces the government to be even more reactionary in the face of protests and justified demands from its people.
She's done nothing. There's paid killings and corruption is continuing in the government and Congress. We are out here demanding they leave.
By 2025, Peru's economy looked healthy on paper. 4% growth, low inflation, foreign investment, but the people saw the truth: growth without justice. A country rich in minerals where most workers survive on informal jobs, with hospitals underfunded and schools in ruins. Economic success became a facade for social decay and wealth inequality. Now, in 2025, that discontent has found a new face: Gen Z, joining the rest of the global Gen Z movement. Young Peruvians, many who grew up watching governments fall one after another, have flooded the streets once more. The spark this time: a pension reform, forcing everyone over 18 to join a private provider in a country where over 70% work in the informal economy. They call it theft, and they're not wrong. For them, it's another reminder that the system exists only to protect elites and investors, never the people, be it the domestic elites or the foreign ones.
It's completely shameless. The political class is completely disconnected from the needs of the people.
Behind the pension reform lies the same ideology that governed Peru for decades: austerity. IMF-imposed structural adjustments forced the government to cut spending, keep corporate taxes low, and prioritize debt repayments. Health, education, and housing budgets shrank, while billions flowed out through foreign-owned industries and tax havens. Each time the people resist, they're told there's no money, but there's always money for investors. Austerity isn't economics, it's political control. On October 10, Dina Boluarte was finally impeached by Congress on charges of permanent moral incapacity. Her downfall came amid spiraling corruption investigations, luxury spending scandals, and a deadly surge in crime that shattered her last claims to order and stability. With Boluarte removed, Jose Heri, the 30-year-old president of Congress, was sworn in as interim president. His government promised to restore security and rebuild confidence, but for many Peruvians, it felt like deja vu. Another unelected leader backed by the same Congress that has toppled every reformer before. Harry's cabinet blends constitutional lawyers, ex-military figures, and market-friendly technocrats. Their first act, a declaration of war on crime. But in Peru, that phrase often means war on the poor. Boluarte herself now faces multiple criminal investigations for illicit enrichment, money laundering, and her government's deadly repression of protest. A judge refused to bar her from travel, however, though outrage continues to grow as victims' families still await justice. Even after Boluarte's impeachment, the streets have not gone quiet. Protests have increased both in energy and size across Lima, Puno, Cusco, Cajamarca, and the southern highlands, regions that have borne the brunt of inequality and state violence. The movement that helped bring her down, led by Peru's Gen Z activists, Rondas Campesinas, and indigenous groups, now demands the dissolution of Congress and early elections, not another interim caretaker. Roadblocks, strikes, and student demonstrations have resumed, calling for a new constitution that would end decades of neoliberal dependency. Meanwhile, the government's security operations look increasingly like Boluarte's playbook: tear gas in the streets and silence in the media. Peru's political system remains fragile. Harry lacks a popular mandate. Congress is reviled, and elections set for April 2026 may only reset the cycle without reform. Yet from the mountains to the coast, the chant continues: Ni Boluarte ni Congreso, el pueblo es el gobierno. Neither Boluarte nor Congress, the people are the government.
It's the same feeling among all Peruvians. Anger, weariness with everything that's happening. We've had enough.
This uprising has become a movement for sovereignty and democracy, be it in politics or economics.
I'm truly disappointed with the authorities. They don't represent me. I'd like to see all the congressmen and officials go in a total purge.
Peru is one of the world's top producers of copper, gold, and silver, yet most of that wealth leaves the country. Canadian, US, Chinese, Swiss, as well as many other corporations dominate the mines. Profits go north, pollution stay behind. Entire regions like Cajamarca, Apurimac, and Puno live under environmental devastation, while the state calls resistance instability. Agriculture tells the same story: avocado, asparagus, and blueberries grown for export, while local farmers struggle to afford food. Dependency disguised as progress. This is the new colonialism: contracts instead of cannons, CEOs instead of conquistadors. Every Peruvian government since Fujimori has served the same global system. When voters choose change, the markets revolt. When the people protest, they're branded extremist or terrorist. And when the left wins elections, as Castillo did, the judiciary and Congress move in to restore quote-unquote order.
Se burlan de nosotros. Votamos por la no bicameralidad y todavía tienen la conciencia de doblarse el congresista que no sirven para nada.
It's the same script: stability for investors, repression for the poor. Peru's crisis and situation isn't just national, it's global. The IMF and World Bank function as gatekeepers of neoliberal world order, enforcing a model that traps the global south in debt and dependency. Trade treaties allow foreign corporations to sue Peru for defending its environment or workers. It's the modern version of colonial rule, economic control without direct occupation. This is a system the global Gen Z is fighting against. In Peru, it's the generation of change. In Kenya, the Gen Z finance bill protests. In Morocco, the Gen Z 212. In Nepal, the social media revolt. In Madagascar, the We Refuse to Be Trampled movement. In Bangladesh, it was the July Revolution. In Indonesia, the renewed student uprisings. And in Philippines, youth marches against corruption and dictatorships. While in Sri Lanka, the people's struggle made a president flee. Across the global south, one voice echoes: this generation will not be silenced. Until next time, stay informed, stay in the struggle.